honor and celebrate the past presidents of Westchester Reformed Temple. We thank them for their inspiration, dedication, and vision in leading WRT from strength to strength. But even at this time of great joy, we stop to remember those past presidents who no longer are with us. Though deceased, they continue to inspire us and remain part of our legacy. Truly, we stand on their shoulders. L'Ador Vador, from generation to generation, their leadership is a blessing for all of us.
The big issue I anticipated was the fact that Jack Stern had announced already that he was going to retire at age 65. That meant 1991, and I was starting in 89. So I knew that one of the big challenges was going to be the search for a rabbi to replace Jack Stern.
I had the rare opportunity of being president as Rabbi Jacobs was starting his transformation. I was president during Rick's third year as rabbi, so we went through the transition, and working together, we worked with Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, and the Experiment of Congregational Education. We created a task force that had probably about 80 members of the congregation working together to help implement and transform the congregation into a learning community.
There were a lot of challenges. Being the president of a temple, there are changes, and the changes are wonderful, but they take a lot of work. So I was determined to make everybody feel connected and at home, to make Rabbi Jacobs feel at home, and to make the people who didn't know him very well feel at home. And so when I came to services every Friday night, I tried to make it seem as if everybody was in my living room.
I think working with the congregation, because we're such an egalitarian congregation and we have always used that as a value, we had to really explain to people the benefits of giving tzedakah to WRT. We had a little education in that because that wasn't the way that we always ran the show here. But it became essential to do that, and people rose to the occasion.
Being president of this congregation gave me the opportunity to really be a congregant and to be among all of the congregants and to try to find the strengths that everybody brought to it. So I was more a leader who enjoyed finding those strengths in each person and having their opinions, listening. I'm a listening leader.
Opening our new sanctuary with our beautiful window facing east to the world and being a very inclusive layout in terms of seating and everything about every brick, every cushion was about sending a message to future generations about this being their home and a LEED certified building and what it means to live out our values in everything that we do.
During my presidency, WRT went from being lay-led, which we always had been and is really part of our heritage, and we're proud of that heritage. But we continue to be lay-led, but we're now professionally run. And I think that that distinction, that took a little while to get exactly right, is a real plus for us as an institution.
I joined this temple with my family in 1958, before Rabbi Stern came. And then when he came, he was the kind of person that loved to involve people in everything. So the first thing he asked me to do is to run a cradle roll, because I had been a teacher. The next thing he asked me to do was run some benefit. The next thing I know, I was on the board of trustees. Finally, he said, would you be on the committee to choose a new rabbi when I decided to leave?
When I first moved to Scarsdale, I had 2 kids in the ECC, in the 2s and the 4s. And a close friend had asked me to join the religious school board. At the time we called it the religious school board, and here I am many years later. Those 2 kids are both in college now, but I'm still here.
Well, I've been here my whole life. So I came back to WRT as an adult, as a parent in the Early Childhood Center. And I went to Sorrel Goldberg Globe and I said, give me something to do so I can have a role and meet people. and ended up Temple president after lots and lots of positions. Or it's because I didn't behave in religious school growing up.
I joined the board in 1971, and I remember that because Al Ronald was the chair of the religious school, as they called it then, and he somehow got to know me and asked me if I would chair the religious school committee. And then I went on to the board, and that was 1971. At that time, who was the president was Norman Blumstein. So I span Norman to Bill.
I grew up at WRT, so it's always been home. My parents were involved and set a tradition and culture of being involved in the congregation. I was involved from religious school. I was involved in the youth group, was president of the youth group. It wasn't as much trying to emulate my father as much as I loved him and appreciated and respected what he did, but you become at home, to find a place that this is where you want to be. And I was fortunate to have various opportunities to play a significant part in the leadership of the temple.
My presidency wasn't something that was like a job that I had for 4 years that is going to just end and then I'm off to something else. Serving the Jewish people is what is most important to me in any way that it makes sense to serve. And at WRT, that's what we're doing.
Jewish communal involvement and leadership in the Jewish community is part of my life. It's just what I do naturally. It's almost not even a conscious decision. I just can't sit by and watch the Jewish community. I feel a responsibility to be part of it.
One of our congregants by the name of Ellis Disick called me one day. I don't know if you know, but I saw a sign. The property right next door to this temple is for sale. Did you know that? No. I said, well, I was just driving by and I saw it for sale. Really? So I made a few calls. We ended up buying that property. It was a big project to create what's now the CJO building. From that point on, we were able to do the expansions necessary that took place in the following years.
What we really focused on was building a campus. We did a major full court press. We set all the pieces in place. We put together a campaign finance committee to raise money. And it was huge, and the results are what we all live and enjoy in today, a community that's just enveloped in this beautiful spiritual space.
There's always something going on at a temple. If it's a good temple, it has to grow. It has to keep some of the basic cores, the values, but it has to grow.
I'm most proud of the community conversations and the very transparent process we had during our transition of senior rabbis from Rabbi Jacobs to Rabbi Blake. That process really embodied our values of transparency and people having a voice and being able to communicate what they were looking for in their new senior rabbi and in the leadership of the congregation. It was a healing process and a process of optimism for the future for the congregation.
Yes, we have an amazing campus, and we're always striving to do better in every area. But in the end, it's just all about the people, and the people who provide the warmth and the connections, and that's that Hamish touch that I think really separates us, or where I come from, Hamish touch.
There's so much goodness in numbers, and we can do so much together as a community when we raise our voices for good, for prayer, in song, and just rejoice in who we are. And I'd love to see that. I'd love to see these walls and these rafters ringing with our voices for social justice and for prayer.
It's home to us because of the values I think we've imparted to these young people. And even though most of them go to other places, ended up in their own lives, they take a piece of Westchester Reformed Temple with them. And I think that's a positive.
We have to really look outside of what's good for just us and our family and just us, our synagogue.
And it's got to be a synagogue that reaches beyond its walls to create opportunities for people to find meaning in their lives.
I think the greatest challenge is to include as many diverse voices, styles of learning, styles of worship, people's financial parameters, scheduling every single day to try and create a safe, welcoming space that makes this a place that people want to be. And to do that for 11 or 1,200 households is a huge challenge. But when that challenge is met is when we become a community.